I don't feel alone. We just settled in and it already feels like home.
You're listening to the Feels Like Home podcast with Mike Throne and Marty Ford. Powered by Horizon. This is big. This is gig. Hey everyone, it's Marty and welcome to the Feels Like Home podcast. This week's episode we were super excited about, and we apologize. We haven't had an episode for the last couple of weeks, but life has been pretty busy and we know that you understand. But the wait was worth it because this week's guest is very special. Ross County sports legend, Ben Hartsock. And for those of you who are from around here, you know Ben as a member of the 2002 Ohio State National Championship football team. And then also Ben was drafted by the Indianapolis Colts in the 2004 NFL draft in the third round. And we were excited that Ben wanted to sit down and talk with us. Mike was away as well. And so Ben comes from his home in Atlanta, near Atlanta, Georgia. And Mike comes to us from the Chamber Expo in Columbus. So all three of us were remote for this interview, but it was a fantastic discussion. So much that we're going to split this into two parts. This is part one of our interview with Ben Hartsock. We hope you enjoy it, and then tune in next week for part two. So thanks for joining us, everyone. Feels Like Home podcast featuring our man, Ben Hartsock.
All right. Well, this is a Feels Like Home bucket list podcast tonight because long ago and far away when we started talking about doing the podcast, one of the people that I think I wanted to get on, and I know Marty wanted to get on, was Ben Hartsock. And Ben, of course, is a Ross County boy. He was born there, raised there, went to Unioto, played at Ohio State, had a NFL career, and now continues to talk about sports for a living, and that's kind of fun. And so this is, again, a bucket list thing. So, Ben, welcome to Feels Like Home.
No, I appreciate it. The kind words, far too kind. I'm always glad to reconnect with home. We've made our home outside of the state of Ohio now, and I get questioned about it a lot. And I do tell people that we have to send out some missionaries from time to time to tell people about the good news that is the state of Ohio, that is Ohio State Buckeye athletics. And so I'm a missionary out doing the good work down here in hostile territory in the state of Georgia, trying to convert one soul at a time.
So I will say this now, and Marty knows this about me. So we actually traded you for me because I am actually a Georgia Bulldog football fan. So
I didn't know that.
I don't know how we reconcile this.
So are you a fair weather guy, or did you live through the dry season that was? Did you live through the dry season that was the 40-year drought?
Yeah. So I started liking the Bulldogs for Herschel Walker and how amazing he was as a player. And then I went through all those Lean Donnan and Ray Goff and all those other years. Started to feel a lot better about myself as an individual when Mark Richt came around. And, of course, now I'm living high on the dog with Kirby Smart. So,
well, Georgia fans remind me of Cleveland Brown fans before the championships. That they were so shell-shocked that they wouldn't allow themselves to recognize we might have. And for Browns fans, every year there's the optimism, and the Georgia fans before their championships, you could tell they wanted it so bad it hurt. They could taste it, but deep down they didn't want to make themselves vulnerable. They didn't want to open themselves up to be hurt again. And yet they've got two back-to-back championships now, and so now they're just insufferable. So if and when the Browns ever get their Super Bowl, just know they will be completely insufferable.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I'll let Marty be the person that assesses this, but I feel like I'm just under insufferable.
Yeah, barely. Barely.
Barely is accurate, and I'll accept barely.
Yeah, it's been impossible, Ben, these last 2 years.
So, Ben, I want to start out talk a little bit about what you're doing now, and then we'll kind of work backwards. But now I know that you're with SiriusXM. You do the college football show, and I know that you were with ESPN for a little while doing some work there. Tell us how that progression went, and did you start working on that when you were still an NFL player, and did you have designs on doing that even when you were in college?
There were two schools of thought in NFL locker rooms about life after the game. There was a school of thought that said, idle time is the devil's playground. You need to have something waiting for you. The minute you're done, you should have your next job waiting for you. That was kind of one school of thought. The other school of thought was, the more time you spend focusing on the next chapter, the sooner you'll get there. Right? So they were kind of very contrasting approaches. But for me, I knew I needed to have something waiting for me. And it actually wasn't broadcasting. I was interested in broadcasting. Going back to my days at Ohio State, I had people say, "Oh, you should do media. You should get involved in that." And I had always kind of said, "Well, okay, it's as hard, if not harder, to get on at ESPN than it is the NFL." And I pursued it after the game was over. And kind of the line in the sand I drew, as I said, you know what, I wasn't willing to go back and maybe start at the Bourneville local public access station. I did want to try to start out at either a regional, like a Big Ten network, or a Fox Sports, and up. That was kind of just the line that I wanted to start at, and I didn't get there, even though I went through. There's a broadcast program the NFL offers where it's trained guys that are interested in it, but it's also like a combine pluck the ones that they think are most talented. Dan Orlovsky, who's killing it on ESPN right now, went through that program the same year that I did. But for me, I just didn't get selected. And so my first two and a half years post-football, I worked as a registered player agent. I joined the firm that repped me as a player. Mike McCartney was my representative, and he was also a tremendous advisor for me. Mike McCartney coached at North Carolina. His dad was Bill McCartney, who won the national championship at Colorado in the 90s. And so then Mike also worked in the NFL as a assistant, in the scouting departments, general manager, that type of thing. So he was a huge resource for me throughout I don't have a 10-year career without his counsel. Agents sometimes get a bad rap, but there are good ones out there, and a good one's worth their weight in gold. And so I thought, well, I'm not getting any traction in broadcasting. Let me go be McCartney for two of NFL football players. And so I went down that path, got certified, and realized in very short order that is it's a dirty business. It's only as dirty as you want it to be, but it's hard. It's kind of like, it's hard to be an ethical politician. It's hard to be someone that doesn't make compromises. And so I felt like a square peg in a round hole. And so I walked away from that, and my broadcast career started in 2017 with life's funny like this. You never know who will, come back around to your life. Ian Fitzsimmons did a morning show with Kirk Herbstreit back when I was in college, Herbie and Fitz. Yep. And I went on that show after every football game. They did the post-game show from the Buckeye Hall of Fame Cafe, and that's where my family went to celebrate after Ohio State games. And I would do a half hour with Ian after every. Always a champion for me, all those years at Ohio State. And then fast forward to 2017, I just left my agent job, and Ian said, "Hey, I've got you a call with the folks at ESPN Radio." And just like that, I kind of asked him, I was like, well, is this like a meet and greet? Is this like an interview? What are we talking about here? And it really was as simple as Ian Fitzsimmons vouched for me, and they gave me, now they didn't give me the Mike and Mike slot. I wasn't taking, filling in for Colin Cowherd. They gave me the premium time slot of Sunday nights, midnight to 2 a.m. But you get in where you're fit in. And that was how my broadcast career started. And over the course of since 2017, I started calling college and NFL football games for ESPN Radio. And then I've also started working for SiriusXM. They have the college sports radio channel that is all college sports. And then they also have a conference channel, the Big Ten channel part of. I do 6 shows a week there. And it's a tremendous resource for me because my link to the collegiate experience is the one that I am most passionate about. And often in sports talk radio, you do have to talk, baseball and golf and NBA basketball, things that I don't have the same level of interest in. So to have that narrower focus has been something I'm really thankful for.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because I remember hearing you on ESPN radio on weekends when, and it was maybe after the NFL draft, and you're in that little sweet spot where there's a little bit of NBA, you're in the playoffs, maybe NHL. Baseball is kind of just picking up speed, but I could always tell that your enthusiasm was around the game of football, and especially about college. And so I think you've probably found your niche now, which is, probably perfect for you.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And even in the realm of college athletics, I've learned the game is amazing. The games, I enjoy cover. We're talking hoops right now. We're doing, it's getting ready to be March Madness, and man, my Buckeye hoops, they're in a tailspin right now. It's rough sledding. So instead, we're pulling for Purdue and Zach Edey and what's going on there. So, but what I've learned about athletics and broadcasting has helped me about this, specifically college athletics, is the institution of team is a huge passion of mine. And college athletics are the most team-oriented, high-level sports that I was ever a part of. The NFL, Herm Edwards, the former NFL Arizona State coach back on ESPN now, he said it this way. He coached in the NFL for a long time because the NFL is not a team; it's 53 independent contractors.
Right.
And that college experience is not, well, for now, is not that. We are absolutely in a recalibration. We are blank slating college athletics, and so I spend a lot of time defending some of these tourism model that I think are formative, that I think are absolutely the fabric of college football, college athletics in general. But the struggle is I think I realize that I feel a little bit like I'm at the Alamo just waiting to be taken down here. But I'm going to go down swinging. And so that's kind of the area that I lean most into.
Let's take a step back from that now, because I know you did play multiple seasons in the NFL. And I think the thing that I am most impressed about your career is the list of quarterbacks that you played with, from Peyton Manning, Vince Young, Matt Ryan, even for a season or two, Mark Sanchez, Cam Newton. Right. I think Kerry Collins was probably in Tennessee when you were there. It really is a who's who of people.
Yep, that's right.
That are probably really interesting to be around. What did you played with all these guys? What did you learn from them? And what did you take out of that experience, other than obviously playing, especially with Peyton, probably one of the best quarterbacks of all time?
Yeah, an interesting way to look at that is outside of Peyton Manning, I only played with rookies. Vince Young was a rookie. Yeah. Matt Ryan was a rookie. Mark Sanchez. And I remind people, I played with Mark Sanchez pre-butt fumble. So I got him before he was, unceremoniously taken to the cleaners on the not top 10 for all those years. And then Cam Newton as a rookie. And so it was a tremendous experience. Peyton Manning obviously is in a league of his own. He's the most unique sports personalities. He's one of the most unique people I've ever been around. And he's so charismatic and confirm now with Peyton's place is the same guy that we saw in the locker room. He was an ornery guy. He was far more approachable than I expected. And his real gift is the moment that Peyton Manning walks into any room, everybody recognizes he's the alpha in this deal. That's Peyton Manning. He's the guy that everybody looks to. He knows that, but simultaneously he is approachable. And I have my personal story. My first day in Indianapolis, after being drafted in 2004, all the rookies were flown into town to do mini camp and to meet the rest of the team and start our time there. So all of the rookies were sitting at a lunch table. Just, I can't believe we're here. This is incredible. We're playing for the Colts. We've got Peyton Manning. We're going to be a Super Bowl contender. Like that's great. We didn't go to the Lions, right? That's awesome. And in walks Peyton Manning. Immediately, like I said, the gets sucked out of the room. Oh my gosh, there he is. And we all have to, like, there's that moment of there he is, but then we have to nudge each other and say, like, stop, quit that. Like, yeah, it's Peyton Manning, but he's our teammate now. He's our peer. And so there was like that moment of crisis that we have to like square that up. And Peyton Manning walks up to each one of us, first round pick to undrafted free agent, and says, "Hey, Ben, my name's Peyton. Really excited to have you on the team." He had gone through all of the preparation, that he had studied my face and knew my name and the 7 other draft picks and a couple of undrafted free agents. And it speaks to the preparation that Peyton is known for. But I think in a bigger way, it speaks to the character, the type of leader that he was. That, yeah, the details, there's no detail that's not so important, but also that those little touches are so meaningful. I'll never forget that moment.
Did you get any clothing tips from maybe Cam Newton?
Yeah, Cam hadn't gone through his foxtail stage when I was around, but Cam was one of the most gifted athletes I've ever seen. If you walked into a room and saw him, you would say, that guy is, he could run the 200 meters in the Olympics. The guy looks like he could play power forward in the NBA, but also he could throw the ball a million miles. He was a spectacular athletic specimen. His area, though, that he needed to grow was simply in maturity. He was young. He was, and we wanted so much to welcome him into our fold that, at that time I was a 8, 9, 10-year veteran. And so I took it upon myself to say, let's bring in all the young guys, even the first round draft pick. And he was a little bit high and low. And I think he grew out of that. I mean, the guy won an MVP, so he figured it all out. But there were highs and lows that he went through I don't remember if he was 22, 23 years old. He was very young. And while unbelievably talented, there were times where he would kind of pout. There were times where things wouldn't go right, and he would go over to the bench and put a towel over his head and sulk, because It was almost as if he was trying to give the emotion that he thought back should give. It really wasn't what we thought he really was. It was almost like he was playing the part he felt like he should. And ultimately, his success came, I think, with maturity, to say, I just need to be Cam Newton. And that's when he started wearing foxtails and wide brim hats, I think.
Yeah. You were fortunate enough to play, I think, 5 times in the playoffs. And, I always tell my son and other people that, once you play at one level, the next level that you go up is always harder. It's one level to get to the NFL, but it's another level to play in the playoffs. And to describe that feeling that it's like to play in a playoff game, to be in a playoff game, to be in a playoff setting. I know you went to a conference championship, maybe 2, with the Jets. And so describe that a little bit.
Yeah. When I was with the Jets, I went to 2 AFC championships with the Jets. Those were the closest I ever got to a Super Bowl. And I remember Rex Ryan, who was the coach with the Jets, he lined us all up on the sideline in our practice facility. And he said, step forward if you've ever been in the playoffs once. And, maybe half of the team steps out. And then he kept going more and more and more. And it was actually 7, if memory serves. I think I went 7 out of my 10 years. I was fortunate enough to be on playoff teams. Just a stunning, and no credit to myself, just the teams that I was a part of, but an incredible experience. But I remember Tony Richardson he played 16 years as a fullback and running back in the NFL, and it was his first time. And so there I was. At that time, I was in year 6 and 7, and I had been, I think, 5 times during that point. And so common for me, and also couple that to the success I had at Ohio State. So I was very fortunate that I didn't have to live through so many lean years that a lot of guys' careers are marked by, right? And so that was amazing. But I didn't become aware of, what do they say? Youth is wasted on the young. Even at 29 and 30 years old, I was very naive to the magnitude of playing even in an AFC championship game. And it wasn't until I got out of the NFL and I started reacclimating to, quote unquote, normal society. I'd have friends over to watch the playoffs. And it got to be championship weekend, AFC and NFC championship. And we're sitting there watching whatever team. And it struck me. I said, I got to do that. Like it really is, until you get to step back. And I think with a little bit more experience and gray hair that you recognize how truly unbelievable that was, because the moment you're so laser focused, I worked consciously as a player, especially towards the end, when I knew that the end was coming of my career, years 8, maybe 9 and 10, to try to savor it. Because my career was one where I was a bottom of the roster kind of guy. That's why I played for 5 teams, is I had to be so focused just to make sure. I always said that as long as I walked in the building and my name was still above my locker, that was the indicator it was going to be a good day. And so towards the end, I tried to allow myself to savor the moment. So when I got to the stadiums, I made it a conscious point to say, before I go in and go through my pregame routine, I called it my mall walk. I take a lot of mall walks now, but back then, even when I was a younger person, I took a mall walk around the inside bowl of the stadium down on the field, and I just tried to soak it in. There weren't fans there. It's 3 hours before the game, but I tried to just remind myself, look at what you get to do. Look what you've gotten to do for all of these years. Soak in and be grateful for it. Because the moment you disconnect from that, you have to remind yourself, oh, Julius Peppers is waiting in the other locker room and he's ready to kick my teeth in when he gets the opportunity. So I had to dial back in a very specific way to make sure that I didn't end up getting stretchered off the field.
This is big. Horizon Fiber Internet is ready.
Let them get you hooked up and power your Wi-Fi network
with the speed and reliability that only a 100% fiber network can do.
Horizon is ready to help you do what you do better, with real people, real rates, and a real service.
Connect with them today, and the first month is free, plus no contracts and no data caps. Call 740-772-8331
or visit horizonconnects.com/Chillicothe
to sign up today.
Ben, do you think that I don't want to call it complacency about being in the playoffs, but do you think that the amount of success you saw at Ohio State in college, winning a national championship, do you think that played any part in maybe you didn't realize what you were doing until after the fact, just because you've seen so much success in your career up to that point?
I think my pedigree, certainly as an Ohio State player, that brand carries water.
Yeah.
The teams, they know what they're getting when they were getting a Jim Tressel polished 3-year starter at Ohio State. So I believe that helped. Now, me individually, I'm strong as they come. I'm a nervous Nelly. I was a nervous Nelly in the national championship game. I was a nervous Nelly as a rookie. The reason I got cut from the Colts is that was a train that was moving very fast. And even though I had all of the pedigree and talent to play, it was my mental between the ears that kept me from having success with the Indianapolis Colts. None of the experience that I should have leaned upon as a pro, I wouldn't allow it to translate once I made it to that Colts locker room. So it should have, and that's a great question and great insight. It should have, but my own temperament didn't allow for it.
Yeah, you mentioned that it was no fault of yours or no tribute of yours that they that the Jets in 2009 made the playoffs, but you caught a touchdown that year. It was your only catch of the year, if I remember correctly.
It's the only catch of my career, guy. when the only touchdown catch of my career for ESPN, I asked, they have a whole department of stats and information. These are people that just study stats. And I said, there has to be some kind of record that you couldn't have played for as long as I played at the tight end position, a position that catches touchdowns. I wasn't a center. You can't play that long and catch that few of touchdowns. And I can confirm that in the modern millennia, and since the year 2000, there has not been a tight end play as long as I did and score so few touchdowns.
You had one job.
Well, I mean,
and you did it well. You were supposed to brag.
Right. I was a very specialized role, very specialized. I tell people I was good enough to stick around the league for 10 years. I was just never good enough to stick around with one team. That was the differentiator.
So at the end of your career, right before you retired, or maybe it was after, in the 2014 season, you signed for a short period with the Patriots, right?
Yeah. So what's funny? I was doing a radio show today with Jacob Hester, another guy played with Peyton Manning, LSU great. The unique thing about the NFL is there is no retirement ceremony. There's no gold watch from the boss and a letter and a cake saying, let's thank Hartsock for his years of service and let him ride off into the sunset. The game is only over. Well, for most of us, it's over when teams no longer want you, because that 11th season, I was able to get signed in training camp for the New England Patriots, knowing that I had no chance of making that roster. But in my mind, I thought, okay, I'm 34. I haven't been on a roster all offseason. I need to show to the rest of the NFL I'm in shape. I'm willing. The Ben Hartsock that the NFL knew that I was the previous years is still that same guy. So it was basically me doing an infomercial, and I'll keep Rob Gronkowski at the time was injured. And so I was just keeping his seat warm. And that was the drill. We knew what that was going to be. But the funny thing was, I never got to a preseason game. That was my goal. I needed to get tape for a preseason game to show the NFL, but I got cut the day before. But up to that point, I'm hitting Rob Gronkowski routes. That's the comical thing of all of it is I only scored one touchdown in 10 years, but yet here I am. I'm lined up at slot wide receiver all the way on the outside, running deep crossers and comebacks like I'm Marvin Harrison. But in that moment, you play the hand you're dealt. And so in my mind, there's a vivid moment where I was struggling to learn the offense and I'm struggling to be in the right place. And again, that's another team that machine was moving very fast. You get on or you get thrown off. That's how it goes. But I'm lined up in the slot, and I'll never forget it. I'm talking positive to myself. You're going to run this route. You're going to catch this pass. You're going to score a touchdown. You're going to make this team. You're going to do it. Well, I run and run my route, and I stop and I turn around right at the point where I'm supposed to be, and I'm literally standing right next to Julian Edelman. And in the world, you're standing that close to one of your teammates. So clearly I had run the wrong play, and Tom Brady, who was sitting there waiting for the play to develop, he chucks the ball dejected into the ground, and he yells at me. He goes, now he said the cuss word. Got it, Brian. And I kind of sheepishly look at him. I say, my name's Ben, but it's no big deal. And it wasn't not very long after that I was unceremoniously shown the door. But that's the life of a working class NFL kind of player. There are dozens, hundreds, thousands of players that have careers like mine, as opposed to a Tom Brady or a Peyton Manning or the guys that are the household names. The glue of the NFL are guys you've never heard of. There's a whole generation of NFL tight ends that are so eerily similar to me that you've never heard of, but are part of a team, have found an amazing role in an amazing sport, making an amazing living. But there's just not that. It's not all swimming pools and movie stars. during the career, my wife and I, we spent and our kids who were toddlers and infants at the time, we spent 2 Christmases and 2 Thanksgivings in extended stay hotels because we didn't have the job security to be able to do any kind of short-term lease or a 1-month rental. So we said we can't, in good conscience, we just need to do the extended stay route.
Yeah. You also have the great pleasure to hear your name called in the NFL draft, which is something that not a lot of folks get a chance to. Describe that process a little bit and what it's like to sit there. I know you had an agent and they were probably telling you probably will go here or you might go here. Talk a little bit about what it's like in 2004 when you sit down and you're watching the draft unfold and you finally hear in the 3rd round, I think 68th overall, your name called.
Yeah, I'll even back up one step before that. One of the most singularly intense moments I've ever had as an athlete was at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. And that period from the end of your career as a college athlete until you're drafted, you truly are a business of one. It's the one time a team sport player ever is truly focused on his individual pursuits. And so I'll never forget that moment. And it's something I relish and I'm thankful for. But in that moment, you couldn't have pulled a pin out of my butt with a tractor, waiting for my chance to sit there at Indianapolis. And you put your hand in that white line. And I looked up and you see Jerry Jones and Bill Cowher and Bill Belichick, these guys that we all grew up watching. And they're there watching me. It's not me within a team. I'm not in a huddle. I'm not a part of a play. It's just me. And that moment it can become absolutely paralyzing. But I performed well and thankful for that high from an individual experience. But that then launched me into the draft day where my agent had prepared me to say there's going to be a lot of false alarms. This team's going to call saying, hey, we're going to trade up and we're going to take you. Hey, if this guy goes here, we're going to take you there. That was my expectation. And I was actually still finishing up my studies. And so I was actually working on a term paper. I was in histology, and I was writing a term paper on somatotropin and its effects on body composition. I'll never forget it. And I was in my wife and I, who we had been married my senior year, we were in our tiny little apartment. I always say an apartment so small you could vacuum the entire thing and never have to move the plug. And so I was in my computer was working on my term paper, but my wife, my parents, and my in-laws were all there. We were waiting and they were watching while I was working on this paper. But we knew if I was going to be in that era, there were only 2 days of the draft, first 3 rounds on the first day and the rest after that. My expectation, and I was prepared to say, I'm a mid to late round guy. Best case scenario, 3rd round. Worst case scenario, maybe 7th round to undrafted. So that was kind of what I mentally prepared myself for. So I'm always a guy that I'd rather be pleasantly surprised than disappointed. So I was not allowing myself to even think I was going to be drafted on that first day, meaning in the first 3 rounds. And so I was working on my paper. My wife says, hey, if you're going to go in the 3rd round, these were the teams that we had thought. We were thinking Buffalo. We had maybe thought about Green Bay. Those were kind of the indicators that we were getting, reading the tea leaves. But I had not gotten a single call. And so I just kind of casually walked out to watch what was going on our old big screen TV, one of those old TVs the size of a piano that all my teammates actually threw in $20. And in this tiny apartment, this TV was way too big for this room, but I forced it in there. That's what college life is, right?
Right.
And I got one singular call. It was a call that showed up, Indianapolis 317 area code, and it was Tony Dungy saying, we just put the name in. We're going to draft you to play for the Indianapolis Colts. And it was just like that. It happened. And so, my parents start calling their friends, and my wife gets calls, and it's pre-text or it's early texting. So it was everything kind of gets into motion. And just like that, what a unique experience in someone's life that literally you knew at some point, either today or tomorrow, I'm going to be here. And then tomorrow I'll be maybe in California, maybe in Washington, maybe New York, maybe Florida. And the good news for us and our family was Indianapolis only 3 hours away. We were on a good team with a good man of faith in Tony Dungy as a coach with great teammates and great players. So we were absolutely thrilled. And what was funny is in all of that excitement, you're passed around and you talk to Tony Dungy, and then you talk to Bill Polian, the general manager, who's a Hall of Famer now as well. And then you get passed to an administrative person, and they start making your plans to get to Indianapolis. And they asked real quick. They said, okay, what number you want? And I'm a slow processor. I need time to think about things. I said, well, I don't know that I'm ready to make that decision. A number is a very big thing for an athlete. And I said, well, I was 88 in college. Can I stick with that? Let's just go with 88. And nope. I'm so dumb. In that moment, the person was polite, and they said, well, son, Marvin Harrison's got 88. We're gonna go ahead and let him keep that when you're gonna need to pick another.
That's so funny.
Well, that's awesome. And of course now, Marvin's son plays for the Ohio State Buckeyes, and probably one of the best receivers, if not the best receiver in the college game right now. Of course, I think he's going pro. But you look at the guys that you've played with, and are there stories about teammates that you have that you look back on? Do you still talk to a lot of your teammates? I guess would be one of my questions for sure.
I do. There are a handful of group texts that I'm a part of. The tight end group for the New York Jets, we still text. Jordan Gross was with the Carolina Panthers, and he finished at the end just the way I finished, and so we keep in touch. There are pockets of guys that I still are in touch with. You make these tremendous connections. It truly is a very tight-knit bond that guys get, and so I do treasure that I keep in touch with as many as I can, not as many as I like, but as many as I feel like I can. And it's a tremendous connection that these guys have. And this past fall was the 20-year reunion of our national championship in 2002. And so living in Georgia, I am that is the one shortcoming is the distance of not being close to the alma mater and that connection that I have there. But it is fascinating coming back to the tailgate and seeing these guys. A lot of them I haven't seen since we graduated all those years ago. You hit the ground running as if it was just yesterday. And I have those same things with high school classmates and high school teammates. And there is, I think, about shared experiences, especially hard experiences as football players. I've don't have a military experience, but you hear those bonds that military veterans have with each other. That is a unique thing, and I think to a much lesser extent, but in some way there are some similarities that athletes share those same kind of bonds because you struggle so much together.
Yeah, I could see that.
Do you look back? Do you look back and look at you mentioned Tony Dungy, but you also had the honor of being coached by Jim Tressel, and you mentioned Rex Ryan. Do you look back at those times and think, man, I literally was coached by legends in this game?
Oh, fundamentally, yeah, and even the guys that Ron Rivera is with the Washington Commanders now, and he has grown tremendously. He was a first-time coach. And so watching him develop, I thought at the end of my career where I thought I knew a thing or two, it was interesting to watch him find his footing as a first-time NFL coach. And so the one thing I've learned, and I always use Tony Dungy and Rex Ryan as the examples of, those were two coaches that could not be more starkly different. You can just do a YouTube search for Rex Ryan and it's not safe for work content, but he knew himself completely. And he led that way, and it was fundamentally attractive. I say this about all the teams I played for. We take on the characteristics of our leadership. When I was with the Indianapolis Colts, Tony Dungy would explain to us on the opening day of summer training camp. He would tell us what our Christmas day was going to look like. He would tell us what playoffs would look like. He had everything planned out, and Peyton Manning echoed that as well. So that team was a very focused, disciplined, detail-oriented team, and that's the way that I mimicked. When I played for Rex Ryan, he was notorious for being a chest-thumping barroom brawler. He would call people out in the media and very outspoken, and I found myself reflecting that as a player. I was more quick to, after a play, talk a little bit of trash, and that's not at all part of my normal demeanor. But you take on the characteristics of your leadership, and so something that I apply even today, even as a broadcaster, is no matter who I admire as broadcasters, the only way I'll ever be any kind of success is to be completely authentic. Because if Rex Ryan tried to be any way like Tony Dungy, or if Tony Dungy would try to be like Jeff Fisher, I had a Sports Illustrated writer describe it to me this way. He says, I don't know how smart is a backhanded compliment. I don't know how smart football players are, he said, but they see through the bull quicker than anybody I've ever seen. And I think there's some truth to that. You can see authentic, you can feel authentic. And in the world of coaching, you're getting a bunch of highly motivated, highly aggressive men trying to get them all to march in orders is very, very challenging. And you have to have a very clear understanding of how you need to do that effectively, because otherwise they'll chew you up and spit you out.
You're listening to the Feels Like Home podcast with Mike Throne and Marty Ford. Powered by Horizon. This is big. This is gig.
It feels a little strange, but I don't feel alone. We just settled in and it all